Hey, what's going on, y'all? I want to welcome y'all back to the Raw Report. And on today's show, we got my friend, Dr. T, best-selling author, theologian, transformational speaker, transformational coach. I mean, she does it all, y'all. She's so special. I can't wait till y'all get to know her so she can drop some jewels on y'all. And y'all need to check her out because, like I said, I met her maybe 6 months back, and she's poured into my life something special. So I'm hoping she goes pour into you guys. So without further ado, how you doing, Dr. T?
Excellent, Coach Wiggins. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm so glad that you found the time to jump on the show. And I'm ecstatic. So let's just give the people what I know they need.
Absolutely. I'm over the moon to be here and honored to be in the presence of your listeners on today. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you. So look, you said that flaw, that flaws aren't defects, but they're defined distinctions. How did you come to embrace your own flaws as assets instead of liabilities?
That's an amazing question, and I think a lot of times when we think of uniquely flawed, let me set the stage for it. Oftentimes, the culture makes us believe and think that when you begin to talk about flaws, there's such a negative connotation. It wasn't until God gave me the revelation in my own life, because here again, we come into places and spaces wanting to conform to that place or that space, and a lot of times the very things, it's just like eating. We take certain things out because the culture said that's not healthy for you, but what's good for you? Those very things that are contained in that product or are contained in that setting. It's the same with our lives. God wants us to know that just like food, there's nothing that He can't use. And so when He began to give me that download in my own life, I began to see that the defects were many things. They
Hmm.
were words that I was trying to outrun. They were places and spaces I had been in, authorized and unauthorized, legal and illegal. Come on here, talk to me. And
Yes,
when
ma'am.
we think about it from that respect, a lot of times we want to show up and we want the glow up, but in all of that, we don't come in being our most authentic selves, because all of those missteps, all of
Hmm.
those unwise decisions, all of those things that we did or did not do, wanted to do, even if we were following someone. I think about the wisdom that my grandmother once, gave me. She said, "You know what? Even if you get in trouble, don't tell me that you did it because someone else wanted you to do it. Tell
Hmm.
me that you did it because that's what you wanted to." And what God showed me was that even in that, even in that, coach, I can still use that. There is a uniqueness. There's a unique usability. And when I began to really sit with that, I'm like, okay, now you do know I did this. And you do know I went there. Him who is all knowing and all wise. And God was like, and your point is what?
Right.
And I was like, okay. And so that was a major shift. That was unpacking the shame. That was unpacking all of those things that I thought were deficits, which were really attributes that God wanted to use in other people's lives. And when I began talking about it and living it, people were like, "Really? You did that?" I'm like, "Yeah." Now, we're not condoning it, but
Right.
at the same time, we don't have to hide from that. When I show up in the fullness of who I am. What you see is what you get. Now,
Yeah.
whether you choose to pick that or not, whether you choose to extract that or not, bro, that's on you.
Right.
That's on
Right.
you, sis. But
Right.
what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to show up and leave that off the resume.
Right. You know what's so funny about that? That's what, like, I'm hoping you guys hearing her because she helped me overcome my flaws because I thought they was defects also. And I had to realize from Dr. T telling me, like, no, that's your strength. Be you. Speak up. I'm like, okay. And it ended up working out. So I hope you guys get that. My follow-up to that is, was there a specific moment or relationship that challenged that belief the most?
I believe what challenged it the most, and I believe that was the connection between you and I.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. It was that abandonment issue.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hold it there for a second, if I
Yes,
may.
ma'am. Yes, please.
Abandonment can be a multiplicity of things.
Mm-hmm.
It can be abandonment of self. It can be abandonment of a parent. It
Mm-hmm.
can be abandonment in a relationship. But mine was, I had spent, coach, so many years feeling inadequate and on many levels but the dominant level was the absence of the father. Because
Right.
here again, in the African American community, and not just the African American community, there are various ethnicities across the globe
Mm-hmm.
that, whether they're Asian or whether they're Egyptian or whether they're Hispanic or whatever, that absence still it resonates to the soul. And so
Right.
I was challenged in that because I didn't understand how I was supposed to be all of these wonderful and magnificent things, yet I had the absence of what culture was
Mm-hmm.
saying you needed to have that. For instance, the father-daughter dance. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I mean, those things I didn't get to participate in. Now, I had a black woman that raised me. My mother was amazing.
Right.
However, again, as I learned over the years, that she wasn't built to be a man and a woman. She was built
Right.
to be a woman. And there were just things, coach, that I just felt like not only was I challenged in the physical, I was challenged because it spilled over into the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times we don't talk about that, particularly women. We think,
Right.
well, he was a deadbeat and he was that. Okay, well, I'm not here to bash that at all. But what I am here to say is, if we would get up off of our sit down and be honest with that and have a conversation with God, say, God, I feel like I'm just out here in these streets all by myself. I had no type of backbone in terms of a father advising me or even loving me or knowing
Mm-hmm.
what it meant to submit to authority. And coach, all of that was coming at me at one time. All of these emotions and
Mm-hmm.
all of this unspoken and unheard of truth, and there was no one, if I may be honest about it, just point blank about it,
Mm-hmm.
who was I going to talk to about it? Because the
Right.
average scenario was there were people that I was in relationship with, whether platonically or whether it was a girlfriend situation or even family. What was the point of reference? There was no point of reference.
Right.
So I was out here in these streets feeling some kind of way, pissed off at God. I said it. I
Right.
was PO'd.
Right. For sure. I get
And
it.
so
Ooh.
that was the greatest. And I do believe, to the listener, to the woman, and to the man that's listening,
Man also. Yes, ma'am.
let's just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not try to put a sock on it or a glove on it. Let's be honest, because he said, "Come, let us reason." And at that time, not only was I dealing with that, but I was learning that the father that I was looking for in the physical, that I felt like, because I didn't have that, I had issues. I had issues, coach,
Right.
with
Right.
accepting God as a father.
Right.
How can that be when the example was so toe up in the natural? I
Right.
couldn't connect with the two. And it wasn't until I was able to sit down and be just point blank honest with God
Mm.
and say, this is how I feel. I feel rejected. I
Right.
feel abandoned. I feel less than. I feel like I'm not enough. I
Right.
feel like every relationship that I've been in has always gotten to a place, it peaked out, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know how to handle that aspect. And there was no backbone. I was the oldest. My sisters are twins, and so my siblings were younger than me. I had an uncle who I was very, very close with. He died very early and went home to be with the Lord. And so I felt abandoned. And that's truth right there.
Yes, ma'am.
That's truth right there.
I resonate with that story, because I felt the exact same way. P.O. Oh, that was good. I hope. Hey, whew, that's good stuff. It's not just for women, because I want y'all to hear what she said. It's men too, because same here. I lost my father early, so I wanted to along that journey without anyone to help me also. So that's good. So you talk about not being where they left you. What does the journey of being seen anew look like for a woman stepping out of the outdated narratives?
Real simple. It is the setting of boundaries for self.
Ooh.
I think a lot of times we think about boundaries from the perspective of, let me put up this guard. Well, I was already guarded. Come on here.
Right.
Our street had become family, and let's just be 100 with it.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
if we're honest with that, there were things that I learned on the street, in the street, and let me be real clear. Let me be very frank about it. It had nothing to do with my family. It had all to do with my choices. Those were my choices, whether old enough or not. Those were my choices.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I found that in making that transition, that I'm no longer where you left me, I had to set boundaries. And the greatest boundary of them all, it wasn't about, Coach, about me necessarily setting boundaries, although that was important with other people. But the greatest boundary of them all was being able to trust myself with others. Y'all not saying nothing.
Mm.
And I think a lot of times what we do is when we get in these situations and we want to make a change, we want to shift into, this transformational space. But before we can be transformed externally, there has to be a working on the inside. And I had to be honest with myself. I had to say, you know what? I don't trust women.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather be in a room with a bunch of men because I felt like they were more 100, if I would be honest, at that particular time. But God showed me that it wasn't about the gender, because the boundaries are genderless. It was about me trusting myself enough to be able to move in those places and move in those spaces and have conversations and show up unapologetically authentic. Whether you receive me or not, that's your issue.
Right.
And that wasn't just on a personal level. I had to set boundaries within myself and say, you know what? If I'm truly no longer where they left me, somebody get this, I hear this very strongly, then I have to learn how to be able to show up differently.
Mm-hmm.
And not show up differently based on the room or the space or the individual. I had to be willing to say, okay, T, if this is what you're looking for, if this is what you're designed, you can't continue doing the same thing expecting a different result. Come on here.
Amen.
So I had to set those boundaries within myself and say, I'm going to show up even if, as we were talking about in the green room, even if I show up doing it, do it afraid, as Joyce Myers used to say.
So I'm just going to ask you a question off what you just said. So when you say trust yourself with others, can you dive into that a little bit? Because I heard you and all that's good, but when you say trust yourself with others, that's so deep to me. Because it's almost like you said, you don't trust yourself, but then you have to trust yourself with others that you don't trust yourself. So how do you trust them too?
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
Absolutely. For me, I think the transition was number one. We have to first and foremost, and this was a process. Mm-hmm. This was not something that happened overnight. I had to be intentional about who I believed I was. And the number one thing that we as men and women falter in is I don't need you to validate with your unsubstantiated expectations of me. Come on here, somebody. You don't have no kind of authorization. Get somewhere and sit down for real, right?
Right.
I had to come to a place in that, and that was the transition for me. I am enough. Mm-hmm. I'm enough because I'm enough. I'm enough because God said that I'm enough. I'm enough even if you don't think I'm enough. I'm enough in this and I'm enough in that. I'm not this or that. I'm this and that.
Ooh, that's good.
And when I began to walk in that thing, mm-hmm. I could feel the change breaking off. And just because we disagree, and we can agree to disagree, we just don't have to become disagreeable.
Right.
And here's another bottom line. Now this is straight up street for old school folk. This ain't for my new folk, but y'all can take this and use this.
Right.
What I said was what I said. And no matter how you flip the script, I said what I said, and what I said is not changing.
Right.
And that within myself, my friend, that within itself will set you free. I cannot show up in the same places expecting you to handle me differently. And I was angry because you mishandled me, but the truth of the matter was I really mishandled myself. Because I let you set my boundaries and I let you determine if I was enough.
Wow. Ooh.
Now I hope that unpacked that. I know
that's good.
But that's the truth.
No, that's good because basically what you're saying is I determined what this is going to be. How I walked in here. That's on me. That ain't on you. That's on me. Yeah. That's good. You know what's so even more profound about that? What you just said, I said what I said. It reminded me of something my mom and my grandma used to always say. The truth is going to be the truth. Today, tomorrow, next year, 10 years from now, it's still going to be the truth. I said what I said. I'm the truth when I walked in. Somebody better hear me.
Come on here. I say this all the time, and I remember the first time God, released me to say it. But It is a truth. And here's
Yes.
the thing, an incontrovertible truth is a truth. No
Hmm.
matter how you flip it, no matter how you look at it, and no matter what you say, no matter how you expound upon it, and no matter how much you debate it, it's still an incontrovertible truth.
Ooh.
And the bottom line is that I don't show up to raise the standard because I am the standard.
Right. Ooh.
I need somebody to hear that.
No,
I
that's
don't
good.
show up to change the standard. I am the standard.
Right.
And anything less than that means I've now authorized you to have a level of authority over me that God never gave you.
So basically, you conformed
Absolutely.
instead of coming in as your authentic self. I am who I am, which is the truth.
Absolutely.
Ooh, that's
And
good.
and that is not predicated, Coach, that is not predicated upon your acceptance of me. I'm
Right.
not for everybody. I am
Ooh,
a
same.
strong drink.
Yes.
And for a long time, I wanted to, play nice. I wanted to get in the sandbox because, as believers, we have to dispel this untruth. Jesus was not a punk. Jesus showed up. He was a
Right.
spiritual thug. Yes, absolutely, he loved us. Absolutely, he showed up. But don't get it twisted. From Genesis to Revelation, when you read how he handled his disciples, when you read how he handled the religious sector, he did not play with folk.
He turned them tables over.
He turned them tables. I was like, what up? Do
Which I wanna
you know whose house you in up in here? This
Right.
is not happening. And I turned it over and buck, if you will.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is a truth. And I'm in a place now and in a season in my life where God has so unpacked me that these unspoken truths, that is my mandate. That's part of my mantle to come in and to dispel the hideousness of these untruths. And that is where I believe the individual, I know for me it did, and particularly in my counseling and also in the mentoring, I tell them first and foremost, don't just show up to be showing up.
Right.
Show up with a purpose and show up intentionally. If nobody gives you a pat on the back, if nobody extends you an invitation. And that is the bottom line to the uniquely flawed life. When you think about the uniquely flawed life, they say, well, what is a uniquely flawed woman? And when I define myself that no one else is able to define, I am that woman that defied other people's expectations and then walked into becoming an inimitable and influential force.
Yes, ma'am.
To be dealt with across ethnicities. Not one particular culture, not one particular ethnicity, but across ethnicities. Because as women, we all have very similar, and as men, even in that, there are still similarities. There are still things that we can have a conversation about that are across humanity.
Right.
And that's what I believe Uniquely Flawed is all about.
Ooh, that's so good. It's like, Dr. T, I'm serious because I'm hearing you, and just even off what you just said, it's just like, I think a lot of people have a problem. They don't see the value, and like I said, you helped me see that. See the value in showing up as you, whatever that is, right, wrong, and different. Like you said, I'm me. Kind of how I even got the raw report, because I'm raw. I'm not finna sugarcoat it for nobody. So even having you on is perfect because you raw. You giving the people what they need, and I love it. So my next question to you would be, how do you define inferiority? And what mindset shift is necessary to evolve from inferior to influential, especially for women of color navigating spaces where they're often underestimated?
Well, that's a loaded question, but it's so good. So good. Thank you for asking that. There are certain words that trend. And I remember when I started using it, and I'm not saying I had the trademark on it, but I remember when I started, saying, using the word unapologetically. And when you think about the word unapologetically in any sphere, whether it is in the marketplace, whether it is in church, whether it is within the space of family, whatever space it's in, I believe that particularly in the African American community, one of the greatest defaults that we tend to sometimes rely on too heavily is acceptance. and validation.
Right.
And it was in that, behind on the backside of the mountain for 7 years for me, that truly I can say it wasn't so much that God was preparing me or conditioning me to be able to come on the right side of the mountain. He wanted me to see that even on the backside of the mountain, A, I was still enough, and B, I was unique enough. But until I allowed myself to get in the trenches with that and to identify with the fact that I have been miscolored, to identify with the fact that I have been discolored, and that because of the eternal painter himself, Christ, the sinless blood of Christ, I had to be willing to show up even if I did not look like anyone else in the room.
Wow. Okay.
And brother, that was a hard thing to do, because I had to become unmeshed with words that were spoken over my life. I had to become disconnected with the abuse, emotionally, psychologically, physically. I had to be able to not just give the gavel to God. I had to be willing to pardon the offense. I had to be willing to give up my right to be right in order to win the many. He that wins souls, we know what the word says about that. And so we want to empower. And there are so many of us, particularly in the African American community, women that, oh my gosh, the hurt, the rape, the molestation, the sexual abuse, the domestic violence, those are not badges of honor for us to set in a box somewhere, in a Pandora box. We are to be able to work through that and be able to speak those unspoken truths, so that then we can get out here and let somebody know, okay, I get it, and I'm not dumbing it down. I understand that you were violently raped. I get that. And even in that, I may not have been violently raped by like yourself, but I do understand the downfall of the mental capacity of feeling like I'm damaged goods.
Right.
And so to that woman, whatever that is, well, I was in a domestic violence situation, or I never spoke up for myself. Perhaps it's not so much about what you didn't do, as God in this hour is warning you to know, I can use that right there. I can use that right there. Because somebody has to show up in the room looking different. If we're all showing up in the room looking the same, then how are we adding value, and how is the spirit of transformation even going to make its way in the room? Somebody has to, kick against the prick. Somebody has to be able to stand up and say, okay, I'm here, but I'm not going to look like that. I'm here because I have something to say, and I'm anointed and I'm appointed to do that. God has given me a mantle to say that. I go in rooms knowing, coach, that I'm not going to be accepted. But here again, I'm not here for you to take something from you, but I want everything for you, is what I'm trying to say.
No, that's good, because even the way you just articulated that, like you said, no matter who you are, and we have everybody trying to be the same person, we have a room full of the same thing. You got to come in and be you and be different. Whatever that is, God can use it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Absolutely. We don't have a right, if I may, we don't have a right, coach, not to show up, because somebody needs what's on the inside of it. Somebody needed to know and to be able to have an example, not just in holiness, which that is, paramount to all of it, but they needed to be able to see if God can use her, if God can use an ex-gangbanger, come on here, somebody.
Right.
And raise them up and put them in rooms, somebody that looks like me, talks like me, and can relate to me. Anybody can get up there and say, well, I've been through some things, and be vague. But people aren't looking just for scripture.
Right.
People want to know, how that thing work for you, sis?
Right.
Did that work for you, bro? How did it become alive and become meaningful in your life that you're willing to get up and say, you know what? When I was brutally raped, when I went through divorce, when I was in domestic violence, when I was abandoned by my father, when I contemplated suicide.
Mm-hmm.
That's relatable. Jesus was always relatable, relevant and relatable. Too often we want to be relevant, but we're not relatable.
Wow. And that's good for nowadays, because nowadays everybody needs relatable. But like you
Absolutely.
said, everybody's trying to be the influencer or to relate, but you're not relatable because you ain't been through nothing. I mean, the way it sounds anyway, you ain't been through nothing.
Where you been? You want to influence and you want to and you
Where
want to
you been?
empower. I'm sorry. Get somewhere and sit down. First of all, if you think about my book, Uniquely Flawed, and the subtitle is Empowered to Empower. What God made clear to me, first and foremost, how can you go and empower anybody and you haven't been empowered yourself? Sit down somewhere.
Please. Ooh.
Before you can influence anybody, you have to be the greatest influence of self.
Mm.
I'm
Talk
just
to
saying.
him.
I
No,
mean,
talk
this
to him,
is
Dr.
the
T.
wrong
That's it.
report.
That's it right there. No, that's it right there. I promise you. Because if you can't get yourself under control,
Come
who
on
are you
here.
talking to? Like, for real. And I know that's you talking to me there, because it took me forever to get myself under control. And then I used to literally think that my flaws was my weakness. Because like I said, when I would show up in the rooms, I'm in there with all you doctors and all that, and I was sitting over there like, man. And then, like I said, talking you like, no. You done lived. You lived enough. These people need to hear you. I needed that. So I'm so glad that you got this message, because it specifically sits with me. So I know it's going to sit with other people, because we think that those negative connotations, which was survival, that we had to do
Absolutely.
to get here, we think they were against us. But we can actually help other people not have to go down those roads.
Yeah. And
So
that's lifestyle. That's
yeah,
mantle. And coach, that's what you're doing here. That's
right.
what you're doing here. Again, everybody's not going to come into the church house.
Right.
And so we have to be able to get in the highways and the byways and the trenches and not just get in and want to get folks saved. We have to be willing, by the Spirit, of course,
Mm-hmm.
we have to be willing to share our unspoken truths. We have to be willing to say, you know what? That took me 7 years. As I said at the onset earlier, it took 7 years. So I don't want nobody to think, wow, she just, no. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, now this is just me talking, this
Yeah.
ain't the Spirit. I know
Right.
beyond a shadow of doubt. I used to think to myself, now, the God, why are you even putting up with me again? One more again. Why? Why are you even putting up with me?
Right.
Why?
Hey, look, when you said 7 years, mine wasn't 7. And when you said it make me think it in my mind. I know for a fact it's been 6. If this is the 7th year, because he's still working on me. I want people to understand. That's why I call it the raw report. I am not where God want me to be yet, but I'm trying. I'm showing up intentionally, being me, trying to help somebody else while I'm helping myself. So in a world that celebrates perfection, how can we begin to normalize the idea of being uniquely flawed without it becoming another performance mask?
That's a good question. Real simple. I have an answer for it.
Okay.
By embracing this incontrovertible truth, perfection is living through my imperfection.
Oh, say that again for me, please.
Perfection is living through my imperfection. May I submit to you that perfection is so overrated? It is so overrated. Get somewhere with that and sit down.
Yes.
Because when you think about it from that perspective, if I'm so perfect in all that I do, now I'm not talking about in terms of mastery, in terms of being an expert, in your competencies. I'm talking about the whole gamut.
Right.
That you are absolutely flawless. The day that I become flawless, I want to be raptured up. Because then what I am saying is, I have no need of you, Jesus. That everything that I am doing, I have perfected it. There is nothing else that I can learn. All I can do now is allow what's on the inside of me to be extracted. Well, then here's the bottom line to it. Then it makes the word of God a liar. He says, no, he says, first and foremost, no good thing dwelleth, in this flesh.
Right.
He said, my strength is made perfect in weakness. And here again, here's another 7 years. Come on here, somebody. I got no shame. I got no cut card.
I love it.
7 years
Right.
that I had to eat, sleep, and drink this passage of scripture. He made it clear to me, except I didn't have understanding and revelation. He said, first and foremost, like the Apostle Paul said, he said, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. He begged him 3 times to please take this phone. Now, well, I begged more than 3 times. I'm here to tell you. I love the fact that Apostle Paul stopped at 3, but I'm here to tell you, I was into the millions, all right? And I had some stuff I needed him to just stop doing what they were doing.
Right.
Life was life, and I was trying to live, and it was getting on my nerves. But the bottom line to it was, it wasn't until I got the revelation when I sat down and allowed the Holy Spirit to speak to me, to arrest me. He said that I want you to see in that until you become weak, my strength cannot be made perfect. You must become weak. And then the Apostle Paul said, well, then let me understand this thing right here. You're saying the weaker I am, the stronger you will make me. Well, then I glory in my infirmities. When I got a hold of that, Coach, when I got a hold of that thing right there, I understood that this thing that I've put on myself, this thing that I've allowed culture to put on me, this thing that I've allowed family to put on me, this thing that I've allowed the marketplace to put on me is erroneous.
Right.
Flawless is not something that I attain to. It is not. But when I understood that my imperfections were being perfected through him who is the eternal perfecter, then it took the responsibility off of me. All I had to do was be willing to surrender to him. And those things that I couldn't get right, those addictions I couldn't get right, the promiscuity I couldn't get right, y'all not saying nothing.
Right.
The drugs I couldn't get right, the Bobbies and the Andres I couldn't get right, y'all not saying nothing.
Right.
I had to come to a place where I understood that I did not have the power to just abstain from it. I didn't just want to abstain from it. I wanted to be healed, delivered, and set free. There is a difference.
Yes, ma'am. A big difference. Huge difference.
Big difference.
Yes.
And it had to be maintained. I was trying to maintain it in and of myself, in between the drugs, in between the pillow talk. Y'all not saying nothing?
Yeah.
Come on here.
Fly by night.
Fly by night.
Yeah, because it definitely don't last.
No.
You know, just off what you was just saying, it made me think about perfection. Even if you call yourself chasing perfection, you're chasing somebody else's version of what they think is perfect. So I like to tell my clients, chase excellence. You can always dust excellence off and make it a little bit better. But perfection is somebody else's version of what's perfect. That's not you. So leave that alone and chase your version of excellence.
I like that. I like that a lot.
It's
excellence to me, when you think about excellence, and I love the way that you put it, when you think about excellence, there again, there's so many variables to it, but perfection is one stop. Yes. It's one view.
The end.
It's just the end. And so when I look at that person, and I want to speak to your listeners, to that woman, to that man that, feels like, I didn't realize that that's what I was chasing. And if I may add, because I hear this very strongly, sometimes perfection is not something that we're in pursuit of, but rather something that we are trying to accommodate that someone has placed on us.
Ooh, that's it right there. Yes.
I liken that unto many years, I'm going to talk about myself, many years wanting to become a version that I felt, that they felt would define me as being enough.
Right.
All right? For many years, and my desire was I wanted to become a criminal lawyer. And God had other plans for me. And so in that, coming to that place and wanting to aspire to be that, when he shifted and flipped the script, I realized, was that really my heart's desire? Or was that a way of becoming enough.
Wow, that's good.
That's
You making me think about that one because you're right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's something great to aspire to.
Yes.
But it wasn't until I realized that, sure, I had a love of the law, and I still do. But my motive at the core, deep down in the crevices, is that really, really, really what I 1,000% desired to be? Or did I believe on the backside of the mountain that I believe that if I become that, then that will stamp me as being enough?
Wow.
In somebody else's eyes. Unsubstantiated expectations of another.
I'm gonna have to rewind this back myself and do some soul searching because that's good right there. I gotta sit with that, Dr. T. I'm telling you.
It does, and that's what we should do. Coach, we should learn to be able to sit with ourselves. It's a process. I had to learn it.
Me too.
Sit with yourself. Stop being afraid to sit with yourself and speak about and share your unspoken truth. God already knows it. He already knows it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you help women turn unspoken truths into tools. What's one unspoken truth that transformed everything once you gave it a voice?
That's good right there too.
Take your time.
I'd had to say, for me, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. Trusting myself enough to trust myself with others. That was huge.
That's huge. Yes.
That's one of the greatest tools in my ministry, in pastoring, and international speaking. All of that. Every room that comes up one way or the other, because I see it in so many different analogies. I see it in so many different men and women. I see it so hidden. It comes across, it has so many masks, but at the end of the day, because it is ingrained in me, I can hear it, I can see it, I can sense it, and I can smell it. And I know here again, except this one was a little longer, that was 8 years. That was 8 years. Y'all come on, add these years up. Y'all add them up. That took 8 years.
Right.
It took 8 years because, again, paralleling the marketplace, paralleling ministry, and paralleling it with the street. Again, when someone says, if you could describe yourself, how would you describe yourself? I'm a cross between edgy and regal.
Raw.
Okay? Raw. Okay? That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Hey,
look,
I love it.
I don't make any excuses for it. I don't take
nothing to me.
No.
It is what it is. I love it.
I
love it because I prefer that strong drink. Don't give me nothing strong. Because watered down, I ain't gonna be able to do nothing with it.
I don't do well.
Give me the information. Let me work through it. And be like, okay, that's what it is. So yes.
And chew on it. And
Yes.
I don't think sometimes when particularly, in the coaching and ministry, space, sometimes I don't think we allow the client sometimes, and I'm gonna talk about myself. I had to learn that, to let them chew on it. Let them eat the meat and throw away the bone. And that's a process. Now that's old school. I got that from my grandma.
No, that's real.
That's real talk right there.
Yes.
Eat the meat and throw away the bone. And sometimes you have to go back and pick the bone up because you weren't ready at that particular time to chew on it. But I believe that is a truth, and I believe that it is relatable. And in any capacity, whether you are a school teacher, a librarian, or whether you are a CFO and COO and CEO, no matter where you are on the Richter scale, all right, no matter where you are on the spectrum, I believe that we can put ourselves in places, in times and seasons where we just get somewhere and sit down and say, you know what, I need to chew on that. Because I haven't fully digested that. And so
Right.
we can't expect someone else to digest what is an option for us. I said it.
Right.
When it's an option, if it's still an option for you, you
Mm-hmm.
can't shove that down someone else's throat.
Right.
It's a process. And I'm a firm believer of this, and this is part of what Uniquely Flawed is all about. We have to first and foremost, before we can do anything, we have to be willing to embrace the process of being processed.
Ooh.
Come on here.
And don't none of us want to be processed.
And we don't want to be processed.
Yeah,
but
let's
we
tell
want
the
that
truth.
drive-through. We want that drive-through.
Oh, we need it. Gotta have it. It's quick. Fast in a
We
hurry. Let
want
me
that
get that.
drive-through.
Yes.
But you have to be willing, Coach. You have to be willing to embrace the process of being processed. And that's where God started with me.
I love that. Everything you said was so spot on. It's profound. I hope you ladies and gentlemen are hearing Dr. T. So like, off of what you said, the CFOs and CEO, this next question goes into that. Relational intelligence is one of your specialties. We know that. How does understanding relationships impact a woman's journey in leadership and in her entrepreneurial journey?
Oh my. Oh my. When a woman understands the value of being in a relationship, whether with family, whether with coworkers, whether with a husband, a spouse, when a woman understands that the greatest relationship to be in is with herself, she will relationally handle her relationships from the perspective she will understand everyone is of equal value, but not everyone is to be equally valued.
Ooh, that's good.
And when that woman is armed with that, there are crevices that she will be able to navigate that the average woman won't have a clue about. And that is where I believe when we as women, when we not only become healed, delivered, and set free and show up unapologetically, we can then turn around and we can share those very crevices, because now I'm so confident in sharing my unspoken truth. I'm not intimidated by you. I don't feel no kind of way about it. I don't feel like I'm not enough. I don't feel like I'm so flawed with that negative connotation. I can say, sis, that was once upon a time me. That's a powerful woman. And when that woman walks into leadership, and I'm going to use myself, when you can walk into leadership with that type of, it's beyond confidence, with that type of deep Noah, deep down in your Noah, then everything that's in the head will be disseminated to the body. And you'll be able then to have a level of sensitivity in leadership, whether it is in the church or whether it is in the marketplace, that you'll be so sensitive that you'll be able to extract what they're not saying that they're trying to say. Because here again, the relationship is understood from the perspective, I'm not defining you in one category. I'm defining the relationship for what you need at that moment.
Right.
For what I can share with you at that particular moment. That has, Coach, been key for me as a leader, particularly in leadership. Because at the end of the day, if you look at Jesus' life and his ministry, people, even those that were at one point saying, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, and then turn around a week later, come talking about crucify him. Even in that relationally, he was very clear that the key component was love. It's love. It's not about your validation of me. Right. And when we understand that as women and we get in and get out, that relationship becomes fruitful, not just from the perspective of what I'm bringing to the table, but what I brought to the table, you were able to eat and chew and digest and then turn around and share with someone else the very fruit that you've profited from me.
Oh, wow. And I know you keep saying women, but that's good for men too.
Men and
women. It still goes back to love. It goes back to love. You got to love yourself first before you can try to do anything else we trying to do. And us men, we try not to love until afterwards. But by us trying to love afterwards, you never loved yourself. So you definitely ain't loving that woman. Let's just be honest about it.
That's real talk right there. That's real talk right there. And I think a lot of times, Coach, not to cut you off, a
No,
lot of
no.
times, if I may, I believe that we leave out of the equation, men, that as if men don't have feelings, as if men don't have, emotions, and that they don't struggle with some of the very things that we struggle with. Here again, our connection, one of our greatest connection was being able to collide. We didn't connect. I don't do
Right.
no connecting because connecting is temporary.
Okay.
That's about contact. But when you collide, there's a spiritual collaboration going on there. So we collided really in the spirit because there was something that resonated in you that resonated with me, and that was that whole abandonment. That was that whole father, space that we were able to share and be vulnerable. And I don't know why we believe that men can't be vulnerable. I mean, it is something again that needs to be dispelled because men want to be vulnerable, but it has to be a place and a space that they feel safe in. And I know for me, as a I won't say ex anything, but as a tomboy, I was very close to my uncle, and so I've had grown men, sit and cry, and I've held and say to me, I just feel comfortable, I feel safe being able to share and be vulnerable with you. And I do believe that in this hour that God is not only raising up women that are able to move and navigate in those spaces and it not be sexual, and be able to pull them out of that place and place them in a space where they feel comfortable, where they can have a conversation. Because we're marrying men, but we don't know how to handle the little boy. I'm just
Look,
saying.
no, you spot on because, like you said, how we collided. Literally, if you wouldn't have pushed me, I wouldn't have said nothing. I would have stayed in the back, kept saying, I'm not ready, I ain't have it. You was like, nah, you cleared the whole room. Nah, come on, Coach Wiggins, you got something to say? I know you did something, say it, come on. And you kept pulling me. But I needed that safe space. I need to feel safe to be able to be vulnerable. No, it wasn't crying, but to me, that was crying because if you would have let me not say nothing, I would have not said nothing. But you wasn't going. You like, nah. So you saw something that I didn't see, but I needed it. And it gave me that push to get up off my butt to start trying to help other people because I got something to say too. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
As a theologian and a leader, how do you interrupt the divine purpose in our flaws? Interpret the divine purpose in our flaws. And why do you believe God doesn't erase them but use them?
I believe that he doesn't erase them, first and foremost, because he wants us to realize that, again, it has to go back to, why do you need him? Why would you need him if in all that you do, there is no need for me? The reason why I push that so much as a theologian is because what he gave me in my mantle is to take the hard-hitting spiritual truths and turn them into everyday palatable conversations. We can preach hard and we can teach hard. I love a good preach. I can do all of that by the Spirit of God. But going back to who Jesus is, he always made it, even in the rebuke, even in the correction, he always made it palatable. He always made it safe enough. He always made it relatable and relevant to where the individual was. I used to think that parables were so deep, and when they would talk about parables, in the church and so forth, and I was like, that ain't for me because I can't get that.
Right.
God made that simple to me, and I believe that's what he downloaded in my life. When I minister and when I'm preaching and when I'm teaching, I'm always constantly doing what I was taught from the scriptures, and that is to pull myself in.
Right.
These are not stories. These are people's lives. And no matter the intensity of the text, there always at the end has to be where I bring myself out and make myself, I make myself vulnerable so that the individual will be able to not just see someone high and lifted up on an elevated stance, but be able to say to themselves or see something in my life that say, well, you know what? If God used her, man, she did all of that and she came from this. My God, surely he can use my little stuff.
Right.
And so when we talk about it from a theological perspective, our flaws, so that the power of Christ, going back to that, can rest on it, that others will be able to look and see. Look at Peter. I felt like for years I was a female Peter. I felt like I was a female version of David. Come on here, Zerubbabel,
Right.
Apostle. Come on here, Hosea, huh? All of that. Why? They were flawed. Coach, they were flawed.
Right.
But there was a unique usability. And that's what uniquely flawed, that is what the core of this revelatory message is. For the individual, yes, as a theologian, it's interwoven in my conversation, but it's inviting because I'm bringing people to the table, not bringing them to a pulpit necessarily, but bringing them to a table and saying, let's have a conversation. And I believe a lot of times that those that God is using in this hour, we're not finding them necessarily sitting on the pew, although they may have some experience and some encounter in that. And I'm certainly not knocking that at all.
Right.
But as a theologian, I'm not going to go around with a big theologian hat on saying, this is what I am.
Right.
I have to hit those streets, and I have to be empowered from, yes, the word of God, but so vulnerable enough and relatable and relevant enough that they won't see themselves as being preached to, but rather having a conversation.
I love what you just said, because I had never even thought about that till you just said it. In just best words I can put it in is God uses the flawed. Everybody always see all the gotta be perfect, this and that. No, the people that's in that Bible is flawed.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's good stuff right there. Now, I hope y'all hear. You don't have to be perfect. We said no perfect. Be who you are and get right. And then I like to tell people this too, Dr. T. I know you're going to agree. It's harder doing right than it is to do wrong.
Oh my.
But it's worth it though.
But
that
it's
peace
worth
that
it.
surpasses all understanding comes on the side of doing right. And I can attest to that. Because yes, it's harder. Being intentional about doing right, yes, it's hard. But it feels so much better. You get off that hamster wheel, you can do some things.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What role, Dr. T, does forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, play in living a uniquely flawed life with dignity and power?
Everything. Everything.
Okay. Why?
One word. Everything. It is the core basis of your movement.
Yes.
I have to go back to this. Again, being uniquely flawed, I am not the sum total of my flaws.
Right.
And when I am able to forgive myself, because there were things in my life, and I'm going to speak about me. There were things in my life. Again, talking about that roller coaster of shame, that roller coaster of rejection. And there were places and spaces that I self-sabotaged by putting myself in that place. Again, not feeling like I was enough or I was adequate enough. And so there were seasons to everything. There was a season and a time for every purpose under the heaven. Okay, so you can be in a season and it not be the time. But when you come in and embrace, when you come into the acceptance of accepting that you are uniquely flawed, what you are saying is that my flaws are far-reaching and more impactful than the complexities in which they are established or were established. What does that mean? I've forgiven myself. For every place, every space, every lie, every compromise. So that when God raises me up and enlarges my territory, when the enemy comes like a flood, the standard that is raised is because I've forgiven myself. Oh, you bringing that up, bro? Oh, I remember when. Ain't nothing new under the sun. Show us that. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to talk about what was. We're going to talk about who I am now.
Right.
What the hell was good about it? Because if he had cracked the sky for real, while I was on that dance floor in that club drinking your liquor with your man,
right, I
would have bust hell wide open. That's
right,
real.
and you know it, I'd
have bust hell wide open.
Right, just because I'm on the other side, you know who you still dealing with. You know, look, quit playing with me.
Stop playing. All
I'm still
right.
the same person.
Stop playing.
Look,
So
it
it
ain't
is
sweet.
everything. It
Yes,
is
ma'am.
everything. And stop waiting for people to accept your apology. Stop waiting for people to come and apologize. Guess what, sis? Guess what, brah? They not coming. They not coming. Forgive yourself. What they did, forgive them.
Right.
And move forward. Because here again, your flaws are not predicated. They are not the distinction of your greatness. Your greatness is not predicated upon that. And when I forgave myself, when I gave up the right to be right, when I gave the gavel back to him, when I pardoned the offense, if I may just go in for just a minute because I hear it, very strongly in my spirit. To having been brutally raped, I struggled. If I shoulda, coulda, woulda. Did I do this? Should I have worn that? Should I not have said this? Was I not clear on that? I blamed myself and I wore that garmentry of shame. But it wasn't until I forgave myself that then, the sky didn't crack. Then I had to be resolved, not knowing that eventually God was going to bring them, in a space that I had to make a decision. Either I was going to run from it, and what he said to me was, he said, if you move now because fear had gripped me so, if you run from this, you'll be running for the rest of your life. And I had to stand still toe to toe and look that in its eye. And when I forgave myself and recognized that it wasn't my fault, because somebody didn't understand nor appreciate my value and my worth, and manipulated and deceived the situation. And it was many years later that I found out that the individual had transitioned and gone on and to be with the Lord. Had I not forgiven myself, they would have been gone on, transitioned, died, and I still would have been here, earthly bound,
Miserable.
and bound.
Yes.
So I had to forgive myself.
Right.
I had to forgive myself in those places and spaces that were unwise decisions that I made. Forgive yourself. And when people say, I remember when, okay, well, what was good about it? I'm not denying that. That's not what I'm saying. I don't deny what I did, because I did what I did, and I said what I said, and I slept with where I slept with.
Right.
And we have to be honest with that. And sometimes I believe as women, we want to hide that. We look at Rahab as a hoe, but she's family to Jesus. Y'all not saying nothing.
Right.
That's real talk. That's Bible. That's the theologian in me.
Right.
And so I had to forgive myself. It's everything, Coach. It's everything.
I'm glad you said that, because we all need to forgive ourselves. That's first and foremost. Before we can do anything, we have to forgive ourselves. So, look, Dr. T, it's been a great interview. Can I give you some rapid fire questions before we get you out of here?
Sure.
So these are one word answers or first thought that come to your mind.
Okay.
One flaw you used to hide but now celebrate.
Complexion.
A book that changed the way that you view personal growth.
Uniquely flawed.
Okay. Morning ritual that keeps your spirit aligned.
Sacred secret place.
A lie women need to stop believing today.
I'm not enough.
Your favorite yes you've said to yourself lately.
I am enough.
I am enough. You're not enough, and I am enough. Those are great. Okay, so last question, and then we'll get you out of here. What final word do you want to speak into the heart of women who feels buried beneath her flaws, unsure if her voice still matters?
Your voice matters.
It does. It truly
Your voice
does.
doesn't matter because people say that it matters. Your voice matters because God created you to have a voice back in utter seclusion. And irregardless of your flaws and irregardless of the words that you're still trying to outrun, guess what? You cannot outrun, hear me, the unique usability that God has created for your flaws. There's someone out there waiting to experience the uniqueness of your flaws, your unspoken truths. And as long as you stay buried, they'll never get an opportunity to experience that. What I want to say to that woman and what I want to say to that man, you don't have a right not to show up and to share the uniqueness, the unique usability that God's placed on your life in the earth for someone else. Somebody's waiting. How do I know? Because I was waiting for somebody.
Wow, that's good, because that was me too, Dr. T. I was waiting on somebody.
That's why
I'm trying my best to be that somebody for that somebody like me. I'm glad you said that, 100%. Dr. T, please tell us where we can find you. First off, I want you guys to know I keep calling her Dr. T because she's my friend, but it's Dr. Tiajuana Pittman. Please tell them where they can find you.
Absolutely. Of course, I'm on all across social media. We certainly are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. But the number one thing that you'll be able to go and locate us, all things uniquely flawed, is on our website, which is tiajuanapittman.com. You go there, you can find us for Facebook, you can find us for all the social media platforms. We're across the board. Everything is linked to that, hyperlinked to that. Also, too, I want to extend a personal invitation to those of you that may not know that we are on a 4-city tour right now. I want to extend that invitation to you. We are currently preparing to go to Atlanta, Georgia. We have taken off of the digital platform and put on the physical platform, Uniquely Flawed, the Conversation. Come on in the room and join us June the 28th in Atlanta, Georgia. And the next stop after that will be Charlotte, North Carolina. And after that, we're going to be in South Carolina. Go to our website, www.tiajuanapittman.com. And also, too, if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to us, and our team will be more than happy to serve you excellently at info@tiajuanapittman.com. And also, too, Coach, I want to also mention that as they go to the website is where we also have Uniquely Flawed, the Conversation podcast. It's rich, it's raw, and it's relatable.
Uh-oh. Hey, y'all better go check her out. Hey, y'all already know what I like to say. Stay real, stay raw, stay grounded in your faith, and walk boldly in your purpose. Till the next time, y'all, I'm out.